You are lying in bed, your eyes finally closing. Then, a sudden, sharp buzz cuts right through the dark. It's 11 p.m., and a work notification lights up the room. Your brain snaps right back to the office. We wanted to see what happens when you feed two very different historical realities into an AI. First, we uploaded the historical records of the 1886 Haymarket labor protests. Second, we uploaded the terms of service for modern gig economy apps and remote work platforms. The AI identified a total inversion of the labor movement's primary goal. The 8-hour workday, the hard boundary that defined the 20th century life, has been systematically dismantled by the software in your pocket. This visualization maps the transformation of a 9-to-5 shift into a scattered 24-hour cycle. Tech companies rely on these fragmented data points to keep labor active long after the sun goes down, making burnout a core feature of the system. Labor in the 19th century was defined by strict geography. You were physically tethered to massive, dangerous machinery. If you weren't standing next to the loom or the press, you couldn't produce value for the owner. That physical reality is exactly what workers weaponized during the Haymarket protests. They bled in the streets for a very specific demand. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. The mechanism that enforced this victory was the factory whistle. When it blew at 5 p.m., the machines shut down. The owner's control over your body and your time hit a hard, unbreakable limit. Their legal rights relied entirely on a geographical truth. Once you walked out the doors, you were completely disconnected, because it was physically impossible to carry the factory home with you. Modern technology solved that problem for the employer. They managed to compress an entire industrial complex into a piece of glass and metal that stays in your pocket. This timeline illustrates how the terms of service you click Agree to have replaced the factory whistle with continuous surveillance. GPS tracking, keystroke logging, and the glowing green active dot monitor your output. Behind those metrics is an invisible algorithm. If you disconnect, the system instantly punishes you by burying your profile or throttling your future income. The 19th century mill owner was a visible threat standing right in front of you. How do you form a picket line against decentralized lines of code operating in the cloud? Gig platforms sold the public a narrative of workplace flexibility. In practice, they successfully dismantled the geographical limits of the workplace entirely. The old promise of 8 hours for rest has collapsed into the necessity of a 24/7 hustle. In a precarious financial system, ignoring an alert often means risking your rent money. This creates a digital reality called temporal blurring. Bedrooms, cars, and kitchens function as active extensions of the office, requiring workers to remain responsive in spaces that were once entirely private. By replacing measurable physical hours on a clock with unmeasurable, constant algorithmic availability, modern corporations bypassed a century of labor protections without having to alter a single law. The workers of 1886 were physically trapped by brick and iron. Today, gig workers and salaried employees alike are held by the invisible digital chains of their own devices. The 8-hour workday was never a permanent law of nature. It was a fragile truce, won through immense sacrifice. Modern technology has now broken that truce. So look at the device in your hand. Recognize it as a hostile factory floor that never closes. Happy International Workers' Day. Log off.